Alright guys, we are here with Ferrets with an impromptu video because there's a lot of scuttlebutt around regarding the Odyssey, and there's a lot of bullshit, and there's a lot of whining coming from a certain direction. Right, so let's talk about the elephant in the room. The MISC Odyssey does not do everything that some people are claiming.
Exactly, it's not the Jesus ship.
It's not Jesus ship, okay? For a start, the only thing it does is explore, carries minor amount of cargo, and does refining and mining and refining, sorry. Now, as for the refining, I'm not suspecting that this refiner is going to be fast. In fact, I would say that chances are that the refinery on this is going to be pretty bare bones. And in fact, yes, you will be able to most likely go through and mine other materials, but it's not going to beat the Orion. Okay, SaltEMike, calling you out now. And we do have a clip from him as well, so we'll probably get to that in a sec. But this is not the Jesus ship. For all the people going on about, oh my god, it's the Jesus ship. No, it's not. It's not. Okay, it's not going to make the Endeavour obsolete. It's not going to make the Orion obsolete. Even the Carrack, to be honest, is not going to be obsolete. We're going to break it all down. We're going to tell you exactly what this ship can and can't do. And yeah, we're going to settle a bit of the controversy in the community, right? Now, before we get into that, let's talk about the SaltEMike aspect of this. This is a clip from his Answer the Call that came out just a few hours ago. Helps if I unmute it.
Exploration might be like at CitizenCon, the long distance probing. I can't imagine that the ship won't be participating in that, right? We do know what medical and how it works is. Right? We have an idea of these things now, and that's what makes this ship kind of crazy. Is, well, it's like, wow, I have 5 ships that do what this one ship does. Why wouldn't I melt all of those and buy this? Or why wouldn't I just buy that? Right? Like it makes you want it, and I think they know that, and that's what it's like. Well, wow, this feels. This is one of the few times, like, I always thought ship sales were at some level malicious. I think they're more malicious to the actual, like, game development and the game being good than they are to the people who are buying them. This is the first time that I felt like a ship sale was literally malicious to its backers. In a way.
Okay, so for Ferrets, who's obviously here, and for people at home, just to recap, he thinks CIG is malicious by putting out this ship. That this ship sale is malicious. Where do we start? All right. Does this ship do 5 other things or replace 5 other ships? No, it doesn't. I'm sorry, but if you think this is going to replace 5 other ships, you need your head examined. Okay, Mike? It's literally not going to make the other 5 ships replaceable. For a start, it's not going to replace a Prospector or a Mole. Why? Because I don't think this thing is going to be able to hold lots of mining materials, for a start. You have a Prospector, right? It holds 32 SCUs, I think it is, or whatever it is. At the end of the day, this thing, chances are, is not going to be able to hold that. Right? With that mining laser, I imagine it's going to have a very, very little cargo bay or mining bay on it. And the biggest advantage that this thing has, it's probably going to feed the refiner as soon as you mine it. Meaning the refiner is going to back up pretty quick smart. I imagine the refinery on this ship is a very small refinery. They're not going to go putting the great big refiners that are on the Orion in this thing. It's a very small refinery from what we can tell. You also got to keep in mind too, some of that photo that we saw was also the refinery used for gas clouds too. So at the end of the day, we don't know how much of it is actually going to be for rocks, how much of it's going to be for gases, and if they're mutually interchangeable. So chances are this thing is probably going to be able to break 1 or 2 rocks, maybe at the most, and then wait for the refiner to go through. And to be honest, I would be completely fine with that. You should only be using this ship to say, hey, I need to go and refuel my ship, for example. I need to find a rock that has quantanium. You mine the quantanium and then it refines it while you're still flying around. And then, you do the quick old sort of thing of open the fuel tank and throw the refinery in, the quantanium in and close the door quick, smart, like the old steam engines, right? That's what I'm suspecting this thing is going to be like. So, no, it's not going to replace the Orion, as he alludes earlier. At the end of the day, it's not a cargo ship. It has 240 SCUs. That is not a cargo carrying ship. The call-in, the person that's here, this was a, whatever it is, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce your name. You hear him there. He's like, he even starts to push back on it. So it's not a cargo ship. It's not a mining ship, as much as Star Citizen leaks might want to play that it is. It's not. It has a mining laser on it that is, chances are, going to be small additions that you will be able to go through and mine small amounts of rocks, mostly just to keep the ship running. And probably find that refinery that's on there is most likely going to be a small refinery and most likely going to take hours to refine. So, sorry, it's not going to be a miner. And it's all this ship is an exploration ship. Classic example, Stargate Universe. The Destiny was able to recharge herself by the sun. We talked about this in the video for the MISC Odyssey. Right? If you're going to do deep space observations or deep space exploration, guess what? You can't take enough fuel if you're going out there for 5 or 10 years. Your cargo bay is going to be full of fuel rods or whatever it may be using that powers your ship. The better idea is to actually take something that will allow you to recharge your fuel, because you never know what materials that might be in your system, in Earth or Stanton's system, might necessarily be in any other systems. Real life example, stuff like on Earth here, we have gold and diamonds that are literally worth their weight in gold. That's where the saying comes from. But guess what? Up in space, gold is a diamond a dozen. If you could go up into space right now, you can mine gold and make a fortune because it's plentiful up there in asteroids. But it's expensive to bring it back, which is why we don't do it. So just because something, for example, is rich and plentiful in one system or on one planet, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be available or it's not rich and plentiful somewhere else. So at the end of the day, yes, you need something to allow you to recharge your ship, to keep the fuel going. And yes, taking your mining laser with you is a hell of a lot better than taking 200 liters of fuel. That's why the mining laser is on this thing. They're not going out there thinking it's a mining ship. It's a frigging way of recharging the ship when it's out there. It's not going to replace the Orion. It's not going to be a cargo ship. It's not going to replace the Endeavour. The only ship that this possibly could replace is the Carrack. But here's another thing. This ship doesn't have the cargo capacity that a Carrack does. It has 242 SCUs of cargo. It's not a lot. If you start taking supplies and weapons and everything that you're going to need for exploration, that 242 is going to be pretty slim. So you are going to need other ships that will have a decent cargo bay, because this thing doesn't have it. It's not the Jesus ship. Let's keep going with this video, then we'll get Fez to jump in on this too after.
Well, because just like, why wouldn't you buy this thing? It literally does everything, you know?
It does not do... He just said it literally does everything. Really? It's a fighter? No. He also calls it a capital ship. I don't think it's actually a capital class, actually. It's not a fighter. It's not a refiner. It's not a miner. The only thing... It's not a cargo hold. The only thing this ship is an exploration ship. Even the med bay. It has a tier 2 med bay. Okay, fine. Great, terrific. But guess what? You're still going to need a space station. The Carrack. Fez, remind me. The Carrack. What's the med bay on the Carrack? Do you know?
It's tier 2.
2, right. And what's the med bay on the 890 jump?
I think that's also tier 2.
Because you can respawn at that one.
Yes.
Yeah. So tier 2, can you respawn at?
You can respawn at you could respawn at any tier 1 and tier 2
Right.
med beds.
But not tier
not
3.
Not tier 3, no.
Right.
Tier 3 is your bare basics. You're just the basic. It's barely basic.
Right. And tier 1 is...
Sorry.
So I was going to say, tier 1 is like full restoration, replace limbs, broken arms, whatever it may be, right?
The tier 1 medical facilities and the future are basically going... It's basically going to perform miracles on your body.
Yeah, yeah. Where tier 2 is like restore health and, and spawn points and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're still going to need a space station anyway. Because the space stations and cities are the only ones that have tier 3.
Mm-hmm.
So
tier 1, not
tier
3.
Tier 1, sorry. Yeah, I don't know why they did it in the reverse order for that. It just screws me up every time. All right, so I've had my piece to say about this. Fez, what are your thoughts?
Where do I begin with the Odyssey? Personally, I think the Odyssey is not a exploration ship. I think it's a... Well...
They've listed it as an exploration ship.
Yeah, but I see it more as a prospecting ship. It goes out, it locates a rich veins of materials. It marks down the location for either a later use or for your fleets to come in, and then you just move on to the next location, and you keep looking for the next big hit.
So you're talking about like a exploration / surveyor, and this is one of the things that I was saying in our last video when we talked about the Odyssey, right? I said it was a surveyor ship, and I had people jump on me in the comments saying it's not a surveying ship. When we say surveyor, we mean it's an exploration ship that will go through and take down points of interest and relay it back to other ships in the fleet that will then come in at a later date and investigate those situations. And I think that's what Fez is talking about here with the mining laser. Yes, it will be able to go through and mine Quantanium because obviously they've got to keep the engines running. But at the end of the day, it's also, yes, it will be able to take small samples of rocks and whatnot and relay it back. And also, correct me if I'm wrong, the Carrack has some sort of observation deck on it, right?
It has a map room on it.
Yeah. This thing doesn't, does it?
No. As far as we know, it does not have a map room.
Now, we presume that map room is going to have some form of benefit later where you might be able to go through and scan down a system, and you might be able to scan down and get markings and readings, and the Carrack has probes, right?
Yes, the Carrack, I believe they're long-range scanning probes.
Right, and this thing doesn't
I could
have
be wrong though.
Right, and this thing doesn't have probes either, does it?
It does not. At least that's what the CIG
Said.
has not said.
Okay,
So
all right. Well, you haven't seen where it says, yeah. There is a FAQ, so we could probably read that. But at the end of the day, there are staunch differences between this and the Carrack. Like the closest comparison that this ship has is to the Carrack, and even the Carrack has advantages over this thing. They both have advantages and disadvantages. This is not CIG saying, "Hey, oh my God, we got the people to buy the Carrack. Now we're going to get them to buy the Odyssey too." You know, there's no sort of that sort of shit involved. At the end of the day, this is an exploration ship that does slightly different things. The Carrack goes through and does deep space probes and has a map room where you can go through and you can, you know, have a look at the system and presumably map out your routes and whatever it may be, find points of interest through those probes in that map room. The MISC Odyssey doesn't have any of that. And the Carrack has more SCU of cargo space. Do you know offhand what the Carrack has for SCU by any chance?
It was a bit over 300, I believe.
Yeah, I thought it was like
300.
500.
It was more than a caterpillar.
456. 456 SCUs.
That sounds right.
Yeah. Well, this thing has 200 and something. Like even the cargo hold on this thing is smaller than the Carrack. 252, right. Yeah.
And also another thing that the Carrack has over the Odyssey is the cargo pods on the Carrack are modular, which means
yes.
they could be changed out for something else.
Yeah, you could go
something else.
Yeah, you could go through and put like another med bay or whatever it may be they're going to put through that. This doesn't seem to have any modularity in it.
The way that I see the MISC Odyssey is a kind of how you would think of the Enterprise from Star Trek, all right?
Yeah.
It's the flagship of the MISC manufacturer. It's going to go out there. It's going to explore a system. It's going to survey for resources. Maybe it can use the mining beam to take samples of the asteroids out there to determine how rich the resources are. It's just, as far as we know from CIG, is the mining arm is going to be used for mining the quantanium.
Now, and this is one thing I've also heard too. We've heard rumors. I think it was, I don't know if it was Super Mac or one of the other YouTubers, turned around and said that at the end of the day, he's suspecting that maybe it will only do quantanium.
Maybe. I don't know for sure yet.
I don't know about that. But I do think it's going to take a while to process this. I don't think the refinery in this thing is going to be very fast. You're not going to be able to sit there and mine all this material and use it as a miner. And SaltEMike also makes references to it beating the Orion.
Well, I think in the case of the refineries on the Orion, I feel like the Orion's going to be the mining output that is done by the Orion it's going to be so large that I feel like the refinery times on that thing could be maybe a day or two, and not just some mere hours.
Yeah, I would imagine the Orion's refinery is very much like the space stations.
Maybe
Yeah.
it could just be like, oh, 5-6 hours, depending on the material, and depending on if you will want the refineries to try to save as much resources as possible, or get it done as soon as you can.
So the
So
cargo capacity on the Orion is 384. So even the Orion has more cargo capacity than the Odyssey.
mhm. Yeah, but the cargo the cargo the cargo's capacity that could have changed with the upcoming refactoring, right?
Yeah, and obviously at the end of the day, we're not sure. Obviously, this is possibly old details. It could get bigger, it could get smaller. We're not quite sure. But but at the end of the day, like he's claiming that this is an Orion killer, that the Odyssey is an Orion killer. We'll keep playing this for another minute, and we'll see if he mentions it.
It reminds me of the
Yeah.
Endeavor in a way. Like,
Well,
buy the base, and
I
then you
kind
can
of disagree.
mix and match your Legos and make it this thing. And then the Endeavor never has ever been on a roadmap or ever been discussed and never been updated since that sale. You know?
So, yeah, but there is still a lot of gray zones with the Odyssey, a lot of where you can put your Imagine in. And if I look at it from a more dev side of view, like what...
So here's the thing. He also says in this video that you won't see the Odyssey for a few years unless the devs prioritize it. Most of the stuff that's in the Orion, the Odyssey, is actually already in game. The mining laser. Let me get this done. The mining laser is on the Prospector. That's already in game. The refinery decks are also already in the game, so that game mechanic is already there. We've got engines, we've got the hull, all that sort of stuff. Right, fine. Medbay we've already got. That's already in the game. The hangar bays for ships is already in game. We got that from the Carrack, as well as the cargo bay, as the vehicle bay. Actually, I don't think there's anything in the Orion that they couldn't actually already just build the Orion now if they had the spare time.
Actually, the Orion.
Not the Orion. Odyssey. Sorry, Odyssey.
Does the Odyssey have tractor beams or no?
Yes. Yes, it has. The Odyssey has a tractor beam on the front to help with the mining.
So, the Odyssey would require ship-based tractor beams, which we don't have yet.
Not yet, but they're coming soon.
And also, I'm assuming the Odyssey would have problems fitting into the landing thing of a base, because isn't she a bit wider than the Carrack?
So the Carrack, I think it is. The Carrack's width beam is 76.5. Specifications width is 90. Yep. She won't fit in the cargo bay, so it's going to have to be shipped to station docking, which, by the way, we already have.
We have that for only 2 ships, and actually, we haven't heard much from CIG in regards to ship to station docking.
No, but it's in there.
Well, but anyways,
The test bed's already done, right? The test bed was the 890 jump and the hammerhead.
Hammerhead. Yeah.
So it's just them having to put it into the other ships. Well, if they're going to build the Odyssey. If they're going to build the Odyssey, then they would have presumably put it in when they built it.
Oh, I do know for a fact that CIG is going to be using a handheld tractor beam as a larger test bed for the tractor beam. So as far as a ship-based tractor beam, I don't see that coming within the next 3 patches at least. So
we did have that leaked that photo of that
true, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
So officially, I don't see it coming anytime in the next 3 patches, but that could always change.
I think it could be something that they're working on and they just haven't put it on the roadmap. I think there's a fair bit, and this is me speculating here. I think there's a fair bit on the roadmap that hasn't been put on, especially when you start looking at things like 317, 318. $318 maybe not, but 319 maybe. At the end of the day, yeah. I'm just gonna go through and check actually. Keep going.
So basically, the 3 things that we are waiting for the Orion are also 3 things that we're waiting for the Odyssey. That is, the onboard refineries, ship-based tractor beams, and ship-to-station docking.
Well, no, ship-to-station docking's already in.
It's only then for 2 ships.
But they're the test bed. The only reason it's in for those 2 ships is because they're the test bed. It doesn't mean if CIG was to go through tomorrow and have a magic amount and flick their fingers, they could put those 2 test beds on every ship. It works. They're the test beds, right? It works. The ship to station docking, they've nailed it. It's there. It works. It's good to go.
You don't have a hammerhead, so you wouldn't know this, but I do. So from a personal experience, I do know that when you've launched a hammerhead from the ship to station docking, it's very rough. Sometimes the ship gets stuck on the platform thing, and sometimes it blows up. And with the changes in 3.15, blowing up means it kills you. So does it work to an extent? Yes. Is it ready for the full implementation for ships? No.
But at the end of the day, the test bed's there. It's the same with the 890 jump. The 890 jump gets a little rough leaving too. That is just them having to go through and add another step to the leaving process, where it says if you're docked, then it just simply dedocks the ship. Is it simple to fix? Yes. Is it the fact they haven't done it because of time constraints? Probably. It's also probably the fact that they've also probably put it on the back burner too, because they're like, hey, this is technically working. It's tier 0. It works. That's all we need for tier 0. Right, move on to something else. But at the end of the day, even now, the 890 jump, it does technically dock and undock from the space station. Is it a little rough? Sure. Would it stop them bringing the Odyssey in? No. It's them doing the undocking from the docking collar. That's more of a server-side system where that's nothing you have to really do much on the clients or on the ships. That's more of a station thing. So there would be I'm guessing there would be minimal amount of work that would have to happen on the 890 jump or hammerhead to make it so that it undocks. That seems like it's a server/space station side thing. So that in itself means that you could still probably go through and put the docking in, because if you were to update the docking, it would be on the servers on the stations, not on the client ship. But even if we'll even give you we give you the win for this, right? Sure, but just because docking is not 100% doesn't mean they're not going to bring it in. And look, I'm not saying they're going to bring it in. I'm not saying they're going to do the Odyssey right now. But he reckons it's going to be 2 or 3 years. I think that is really disingenuous. Because at the end of the day, I think that it's... Look, is there other ships that they need to do? Sure. Banyu Merchantman, for example. But at the end of the day, I just looked up tractor beams too. At the end of the day, the Banyu obviously the Merchantman gets done. Yeah. Tractor beams don't have any date. It's just listed as 14 weeks and it doesn't have an end or a start date. So, anything else? Oh, no, hang on. Here it is here. Tractor beams. The tractor tool. Grey Tech. So that's Grey Tech. Grey Cat.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have anything for, like, ships, tractor beams or anything like that. So, unless it's one of these hidden ones or whatever. Is there anything else you want to say? Anything else we're going to comment on? Or?
Well, in regards to how long it's gonna take, is it gonna take 3 years for them to build the Odyssey? That I don't think so. No. I really hope not, but it would be a nice thing to see when they release the pyro system, since they kind of teased the whole thing with the Jax yeah, and since he took the Odyssey into the pyro system, maybe that was a bit of a hint that they want to drop it for the pyro system.
I could see that. You got to remember the pyro system is 3 times larger than Staten.
Yeah, so is it a possibility? It is a possibility because for another piece of evidence is CIG has a holo viewer of the ship at the Ship Expo, which means that it's already in some stage of active development right now. So
sure.
they are obviously working on it. It's probably a white box right now because it looked not very detailed, but it did look like there was work done on it. So maybe late white box, getting ready to move into the gray box phase. The gray box phase could potentially last 6 months, maybe, for a ship that size. I could definitely see it taking 6 months. So yeah.
So the one that he talks about there and he makes references to is the Nautilus. Now, there's nothing on the tracker about the Nautilus being available yet.
No, but it is. The Nautilus was at one point on the roadmap somewhat recently. So, at least that I believe it was, because I know that they had space mines on there. So a lot of people took that as a speculation that the Nautilus was getting ready to drop too. Maybe I may be wrong, but I believe.
No, you're right. Space mines were on there. Space mines are still on there actually, but it's been pushed back to, or it's available now. They reckon at the end of Q3 2022.
So that means either we're getting the Nautilus or we're getting a smaller ship that is a mine layer, maybe as a testbed for the Nautilus. We don't know.
I would say probably get the Nautilus for testbed for the space mines. CIG generally likes using the big important ships for testbeds because it gives the people that spent all this money some sort of validation. And not knocking them, it's true. Like the 890 jump. The 890 jump was the testbed for medical. Right? The 890 jump and Hammerhead were testbeds for docking ports. Right? The missions, FPS missions, the 890 jump was the testbed for that with the hijack mission. Hey, people spend $1,000 on the ship. Should CIG give them priority on the testing environments? Sure. Yeah, by all means, they spend $1,000 on a ship. You go and buy $1,000 McDonald's burger, it's going to be a lot better than the one you pay for $1. So I don't have a problem with that. But yeah, the Carrack is it's $600. At the end of the day, I think the Carrack's coming out anytime soon. That'd be an interesting question to find out. Actually,
The Carrack is already out.
I meant with like the, I mean with the but I mean like with the built-in like modules and stuff like the modularity.
Breaking the news, people. The Carrack is coming out in 3.16. All right.
The like for example, the exploration module is what I'm talking about.
You mean the map room and
Yeah.
the freaking exploration deep space?
Yeah.
And
Space
then
mines
antennas.
And probes. Was there probes in here? Long distance probing is early 2022. February of 2022 finishes. Start of March 2022. So, guess what? I'm guessing space probes, long distance probing. Guess what? I'm thinking the Carrack is going to be the test bed for that. Because the Carrack is a $600 ship. Yeah, they give the test bed to the big and very rich ships that people spend a lot of money on. No surprise. So yeah. Anything else we want to say before we wrap up? It's been about half an hour.
I don't know. I think that's it.
Cool. No worries. Look, at the end of the day, guys, obviously, as for SaltEMike, I think at the end of the day, personally, my personal opinion, I think he's salty because his base likes it. They go there and they watch him because he's salty.
His name is SaltEMike.
He's living up to his name. And, you watch the weekend reviews, they tend to be a lot more positive than when he's streaming or when he's doing these sort of answer the calls too. So, at the end of the day, that's what I suspect it is. Look, it's his shtick. Good on him. Personally, I'd rather be positive in the community. Is there things that you can hold CIG over the coals for? Sure. But I'm not going to sit here and get all upset over a ship when we don't have all the details. But guys, let me know what your thoughts are in that comment section below. Obviously, Ferretz's details will be in the description, so please feel free to go and give him a like and give him a follow on Twitter, YouTube, stuff like that. I was going to say Tinder. Not Tinder, Twitch.
Not quite.
Go swipe right on Tinder.
I don't use Tinder.
It's very late for me, guys. It's like, I've got to get up in like 5 hours and go to work, so it's going to be an interesting night. Apart from that, guys, let me know what your thoughts are in that comment section below. Obviously, this video has been helpful. Please smack that like button if you're new to the channel. Welcome and subscribe. Apart from that, guys, we'll see you in the next demonetized video from YouTube. Have a great night and enjoy. Want to say bye?
Goodbye, and always swipe left when you see a dental ferret. All right.
Yeah. See, if you're gonna mock me, at the very least, you got to make sure you spit the sentence out, bro.
No, sorry, that's just not how I roll.
Have a good night, everybody. Enjoy.